Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Bill Freehling. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Susan. Glad to be here.
It's so good to see you. Bill is such a great friend and neighbor and person that's super well known to the business community here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We were just chatting for a minute before we came on to record and realized we both began parts of our journeys at the same time back in September of 2004, which is when I joined the chamber staff and our guest, Bill Freehling, joined the Freelance Star staff here. Now, if you're just listening in, the Freelance Star, it was a large media conglomerate here in the Fredericksburg region, and Bill was the business writer for the Freelance Star, who also began a product called the Fredericksburg Business Insider, which was pretty cutting edge back then. I still remember when you launched it, and we used the chamber list to help with that because it was an email kind of a e-newsletter that you didn't see all the time back then, and it was focused with the links that were just about business in the region, right? So, and then you had sponsors and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that came to the Freelance Star and was covering a variety of things before I landed on business. But I covered just regular business for a couple of years, and then saw the need and the interest in the community to launch a more kind of in-depth transaction-based publication, and we called it Fred Biz. And I think I did that for 5 or 6 years before moving on.
He explained it very much, very well, better than I did, and perfect. But loved that. And after doing this for almost 10 years working there at the Freelance Star, Bill transitioned over to the Fredericksburg Department of Economic Development and Tourism, where within a couple of years he became the Director of Economic Development and Tourism. And you were also there in the city of Fredericksburg in that role for about 10 years. Concluding that time just this summer in June of 2024. So about 10 years in both places. And now what Bill is doing here in our community, he's working as a business reporter for the Fredericksburg Free Press. So it's been an interesting journey. He's kind of come full circle with, I think, one of your big passions, which is that writing. His background, he went to Wake Forest University, getting a bachelor's in history, and to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he got his master's degree in mass communications. And I just have to also add, because we kind of live near each other and see each other the most out walking. And in the time that he's been here in this professional capacity, he's been married and has 2 wonderful kids and a couple of dogs. And that's where I see you all the time, is out walking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the great things about Fredericksburg, living in near downtown Fredericksburg, how walkable it is. And it's pretty and a lot
absolutely,
to look
yeah.
at.
I used to see you walking over to EDA or on lunch and all of that. So any of our listeners, if you stay cramped at your desk during your lunch hour or at other times of the day, think of ways you can get out and walk, because it really does help clear your head, right?
Absolutely, it does. I always try to do that. Get up and move, and really helps your body and your mindset.
Love it. Yes. Well, let's jump in here and share with our listeners. Tell us about, from your perspective, your leadership journey.
Yeah. So it's interesting. When I was with the city was probably the most clear time that I was a, quote unquote leader. I was the director of that department. I certainly had some of that background when I was in high school. I was, one of the student government leaders, and college, I was the president of my fraternity.
Okay.
And so I
did not know that.
Yeah. And then when you're a reporter, I guess I was a leader in that I started the Fred Biz, and I kind of ran that on my own. I took the initiative to do that. But as far as having a title of a leader, probably the most clear example of that was when during my 8 years as the director of economic development and tourism for the city of Fredericksburg. And now I'm kind of back to being more of a sort of in the creator role with the Fredericksburg Free Press. But so I think I've sort of moved in and out of, I guess, quote unquote leadership roles throughout my career journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, you participated. You were a fellow in Leadership Fredericksburg, I think class of 2013. So I'm hopeful that maybe some of the things that occurred during your time there and with your team there, perhaps that may have helped you some in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great program that the chamber does. And, it really makes you think about, yourself and what kind of, what makes you tick and what your leadership styles are and what your personality types are. And I'm very much of kind of an introvert, even though I'm in sort of an like extroverted type job a lot of times. So for me, like stepping into that director role and being in that director role for 8 years was, I had to kind of step out of my normal personality type as an introvert. And so the Leadership Fredericksburg program definitely like helps you kind of understand yourself and what works for yourself. And met a lot of great people, learned a lot about the community. So it was really a good program for me.
Thank you. I think I recall your Right Path profile. You were an analyzer.
Yep.
Perfect fit, right? The guy that asks a lot of questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Likes the details.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a reporter, you're talking to people, but at the same time, you've got your notebook and you kind of, you're not really talking about yourself. You're asking people about them. And so it's, even though it's extrovert and that you're talking to people, you're still sort of it's not really about you. So
right.
So yeah, the Leadership Fredericksburg program was really good, and it challenges you to really to think about yourself and to kind of put yourself out there and talk deeply about about your journey and your feelings and your leadership abilities. So yeah, good program.
Well, I think you're best aligned with what you do when it aligns with your personality, right? So for you to be just naturally inquisitive, you have to be a writer, reporter type. And so to see that, like when that tool came out and said analyzer, that's just a great fit. And now working back, doing a lot of that again. I mean, you were using it also in your work with EDA and everything. You naturally still brought that lens, which is great. And I think it also helped you really get to know the businesses and folks that you were working with during that time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, even when I was with the city, I was definitely doing the same types of kind of business content that I had always done. One of the first things I wanted to do when I got the job was sort of improve the communications that. And so we created a newsletter and we created a video series, Freehling Finds, and so I definitely used a lot of the skills that I had developed when I was with the Freelance Star, and now I'm kind of still using those same skills. So even though my path has been sort of winding, it's a lot of the core of what I've doing has stayed fairly similar.
It makes sense. During this time, like maybe earlier in your journey or even now, has there been a particular mentor or two or someone that had a large impact on shaping how you've come about?
Yeah. I mean, during my time in Fredericksburg, I'll just keep it at that. Obviously, we could go deeper into childhood and your parents and all that. But as far as like since I came to Fredericksburg 20 years ago, I've worked with some really great people at the Freelance Star. Nancy Moore and particularly Phil Jenkins was my editor there, and Phil was just a great editor and great guy and just like a quiet leader. Like he wasn't like going to get in your face, and he was very much, I think you would agree, sort of an introvert, but everyone really respected him, and he was a wonderful, wordsmith editor. So he was great. And then when I transitioned to it with the city, I worked initially for Karen Hedelt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Karen was a great leader, and she had worked for the city for decades. And,
yes,
was tough but very kind at the same time.
More of an extrovert.
Yeah, a little bit more of an extrovert. But, and then my last 8 years when I was the director, I worked with Tim Baruti, and he also excellent leader and good guy and very caring, passionate person. So
Tim's interesting.
Yeah, good supervisors all along the way.
Yeah.
And now I'm working with Joey LaMonaco at the Free Press, but then also with their board, like Seth Silber and Mitzi Brown. And so good people there too. So I've been fortunate to work with really good people in all my different chapters.
Well, tell us a little bit more about this free press. It's still relatively new, I think a year or so here in our area, and a newer model that has come forth all around the country, really, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a nonprofit startup news website, so it's completely free for people to read. You know, they're supported by sponsors in the community. So they've got 3 full-time writers, and Kathy Knotts, Taft Coghill, and Joey LaMonaco, and they're covering kind of primarily Stafford, Spotsylvania, and Fredericksburg, the 3 of them. And then I'm not full-time, but kind of their primary like business writer. So I'm doing a blog and a weekly newsletter that comes out, and a podcast and a video series. And then they just brought on another full part-time freelance writer. So they've got, you know, I guess you could say like 3 full-time and 2 part-time writers now. And I think they're doing a really good job covering the Fredericksburg community. So, you know, as the Freelance Star has, I still have some great friends at the Freelance Star. And I think they're doing a great job still, but they just don't have nearly the staff that they had. And so as that kind of coverage has fallen off as far as the quantity, the free press has started to fill that void. And you have seen that model work in other communities too, the nonprofit like online news operation. It's got some great people that are on the board. A lot of them I worked with at the Freelance Star or when I was with the city. So I felt very comfortable with the people I would be working with, and that's why I made the decision to kind of
no strangers
take on
there.
that next. No, definitely not.
Is there what is the name of some of the business items that you're putting out, and where do we find those?
Yeah, thanks. It all falls under the BizBeat brand, and so the website is fredericksburgfreepress.com, and then for my stuff it's /BizBeat. So fredericksburgfreepress.com/BizBeat. That's where my blog is. If you want to just look at that page, you know, daily or whatever, all of the blog posts are on there. And then those blog posts feed into a weekly email newsletter that goes out on Wednesday afternoons. And once a week, we do a video series that we're calling BizBeat Clips. Okay. And it's just to feature different local businesses and interesting business stories. That comes out typically on Mondays or Tuesdays. I'll post it. And then we have a monthly podcast that we're calling BizBeat Banter. It might expand to be on more than just monthly, but for the first 6 months or so, it might just be monthly. And we had Charles McDaniel with Hildrip on there, and we had Joel Griffin, and we'll be interviewing April Peterson here soon with River Rock. And so yeah, that's just like more sort of like what you're doing, just the in-depth conversations with people that have an interesting story to tell in the business community.
Well, I feel, I don't know how often you've been the one being interviewed. So I was glad to like that you said yes and said, okay, I'll come get on the other side here.
Yeah. I guess I did it somewhat when I was with the city. I would get interviewed.
Okay. On
really,
different
not
issues.
Really like
yeah.
this though, more
not
just
about
like,
you,
more just about what's, some particular topic and what's going on. So yeah, I guess I haven't done this very, very frequently, but I think it's fun. So you got a great studio here, and you're a good interviewer. So yeah, I was happy to do it.
Look, do y'all hear him being all nice to me and so forth?
It's all true.
I just love it. Well, when you go out and you're looking for an interesting, you said like a business story, like what catches your interest? How does it rise to you saying, I think I'm going to go check in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because really it's very arbitrary and subjective, like what's a story and what's not. I think really it kind of just comes down to you just have an instinct for, I think that this is really interesting. It's interesting to me. It's probably going to be interesting to other people too. Yeah. It's a little bit unique. It's something you don't always see. Or, I've written enough stories about, just well-known brands that come here and just like little things about, Raising Cane's is coming here, Chick-fil-A is opening. Like you'll be amazed at like how many hits, like just little simple stories like that.
Really?
We'll get. So just something that I think is going to be, it's interesting to me that I think is going to be interesting to other people. And it's really kind of beyond that. It's there's some things that are obviously news, and then there's some things that it's just sort of more subjective.
Mm-hmm. Well, being kind of at it and looking at business over 20 years, what do you think when you look back at 2004 to today, what are the biggest changes, or what do you see there?
There's definitely been a lot of changes. I guess just like just the growth that our area has had. Our downtown, if you look at like our office used to be at the Freeling Star, it was where like the Publisher Hotel is now. So like,
I know that's like mind-boggling.
That area it looks completely different. The old Fredericksburg hardware store was still up. The old like Safeway grocery store was up.
Were those were there 20 years ago?
Yeah, and so
it blurs in my mind.
Yeah, so like the downtown, particularly like the William Street corridor, is just completely different than what it was. UMW has changed a lot with like Eagle Village wasn't there before.
That's the university, right?
The University of Mary Washington, yeah. There's a lot more like kind of shopping centers. Like Central Park was still pretty dominant then. Obviously, Central Park is still doing well, but but since then, there's been so many other Cosner's Corner, Harrison Crossing, Stafford Marketplace. All these other shopping centers have been built, and then obviously just the residential growth and the now data centers coming and the ballpark, and so definitely a lot has changed. Kalahari and the VA clinic. So there's been
That's huge.
A lot of changes over the past 20 years.
Remember when Kalahari almost came to the city where the ballpark is, right?
Yeah. Kalahari's been kind of a interesting sort of arc of my career here. It came to the Freeland Star. It was, I don't know, maybe several years after that they announced Kalahari was coming to the city, and so I kind of covered that from a business perspective. And
it's around 2008, right? Because it hit right with the recession coming, right?
That's right. Yeah, and then I think they always were kind of interested in Fredericks, in the community, in the location. That particular site just got hit by the recession.
Right,
the model didn't work, and then when their interest came back around, they had found this other site where they are now in Thornburg, and so I'm glad that they ended up landing here, even if it wasn't in the city of Fredericksburg.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be big. Yep, and that whole Thornburg area is being transformed right in front of our eyes right now.
Well, I need to ask you: Are you going to go on the slides or the? I mean, what are we going to do there? I mean, have you looked at that? It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, no, I'm game. I'm game for it.
Let's do it.
It's going to be. It is going to be huge. I had the opportunity to get on site and do a video on it. It was one of the first videos I did for the Free Press, and
nice.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a huge driver for our community, no question. And there's definitely going to be opportunities for locals to enjoy it too.
Oh, absolutely. So, It's kind of neat to have our community, our region is so vast and different. We've got these military installations, now something as large as Kalahari, a ballpark, right? And then really tiny little wonderful mom and pop type shops, right? That just make up the character all around the region and especially downtown.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a good diverse economy of big businesses and small businesses. And I think we're in a really great place.
How did you weather, like as an introvert individual, and you were with the city then, but just in general, I like to chat with people about how we've come through this time where we had those couple of years of just, we won't hopefully ever see anything like that again in our lifetime with the pandemic, but there was isolation and then work to be done and new rules. And then there's you as an individual and as a leader, like how you're navigating that.
Yeah, it was challenging, as I'm sure the same was for you with the chamber. We split our staff for the while there during kind of the height of the pandemic. I was with the city in the economic development office, and we kind of split our staff. So we would have like A/B shifts, and we would have half of the people working in the office one week, and then they would work from home the next week.
Was that because of your office space wasn't large
just
enough?
Social distancing. Just to keep everybody kind of separate, and so that if somebody did get sick and there was like and half of the people got sick, then at least like the other half would still be there to to run the show. So that was definitely challenging. But we got through it, and I think we did a lot of innovative, helpful things for the business community, for the Fredericksburg business community at the time, with a lot of grants and assistance programs. So, I think it's very gratifying to be where we are now, compared to where we were then. So
Absolutely. And what are your kids' ages?
12 and 14.
Okay, so they were in some of the school ages that were really affected like that.
Yeah,
so
they were.
I hope that they're doing all right, coming
Yeah.
back out into the sunlight and everything, and really connecting with other kids.
Yeah, it almost seems like a blip at this point, but
Yeah.
certainly that was a big part of their childhood.
Yeah.
And online school there for the end of the school year, and I guess the 2019-2020 school year was really challenging. So we're certainly glad to be on the other side of that now.
I wonder if we should. I know others, like nationwide, there's so much documentation, but are we capturing the stories and all from that moment yet, or have we, or what should we do to make sure we don't lose sight of like kind of going through this collective thing?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just, it's, just capturing people's memories of it through like oral histories, and
We really should.
it's going to be interesting to look at the data and whether there's like 10, 20 years from now, if there's sort of achievement gaps between
Yeah.
people that were in kind of key like educational moments during that time frame.
Right.
And then just hearing people's like recollections. I mean, like we think of it as it's still pretty like modern history that, but soon it's just going to be something for the history books. And so it'd be interesting to capture people's recollections of what it was like to go to school via Zoom, Although
Yeah.
who knows, maybe 30 years from now, everybody will go to school via Zoom.
I hope not. I mean, I think it's good for as needed for different things, but you can't change that human touch, man. It's just something else. I think our businesses are just so resilient. What we saw, so many businesses, the way they innovated and found their way through it, it really is inspiring.
Definitely. They really did. Yeah, there were a lot of really creative things done by the business community to get through it. And I'm sure that taught a lot of lessons about, pivoting and
That was
working
the
with
big
fewer
word.
resources and just doing things differently.
Yeah.
A lot of the things just kind of stuck with all of the remote working and online ordering, and a lot of that stuff stuck around after the pandemic.
Well, the world definitely looks different today than it did as you were completing your time and as I was completing my time in college and so forth. If a student comes to you today, somebody new or just outside of their college or even high school, and says, I want to go into this field of being a reporter or a writer, sort of like you do, what kind of advice would you give them for today's world and the future?
Yeah, just know how to wear many hats. It's different than it was where you were very kind of, you cover one specific thing and you write articles about it. Like now, you got to be, I think, well versed in the writing and the interviewing, but also the technology. How to do podcasts and how to do a video and how to do social media and just be. Have the core. You have to have the core competencies on, your ability to write and talk and to people and connect, and but just understand all the technologies as they emerge, and but I think ultimately relationships are just as important now as they ever were, and I think one of the things that has made me, I don't know, done okay as a reporter is just that people do generally trust me. I've been here for 20 years. People know me. So they'll open up to you. They know that you're going to get the facts right. And so, developing those relationships and the genuine kind of caring about the people beyond just kind of them seeing them as a source, is really important.
It is important, and being consistent with that. I remember when you came over and interviewed me when I was named president of the chamber. I don't know if you remember that, but
I do.
We sat and chatted at the office, and I was talking to my dad that night, and I told my dad that when we were kind of chatting a little on the side, I had shared with you, I think it was that I was going to leave the planning commission. I think it was something about the planning commission. And that I said I hadn't told anyone that yet, so please don't put that in the article. And my father scolded me and said, "Oh, he's definitely, he doesn't know you." He just said, "He's definitely going to put that in the article. You made a mistake there. You shouldn't share whatever." And you didn't. It wasn't in the, you kept it, and it's not like it was breaking news, but it was part of my story that I, shared and didn't. And so you were to your word. You were trustworthy.
Yeah. That's what I've always tried to be. And there's, I think it's just the right thing to do, but it also pays dividends down the road, because then they will trust you, and they'll be more likely to come to you with the next thing. And, there's certain times that somebody says, "Oh, don't put that in there," but it's kind of out there publicly already. So you have to kind of have a balancing act of
what
if that little nugget of information is kind of available somewhere else, like in the public domain, then I probably would go with it. But if it's not, and the only place that I could have gotten it is from like you telling me that, then I'll respect that I'm not going to include that.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. I love it. Well, it's been quite the journey, and I can't wait to see all the future pieces that come out. Anything new or anything that you enjoy? This is me putting you on the spot a little bit, that you like to read or that inspires you, or watch or listen to?
Yeah. I guess a lot of things. I really enjoy personal finance.
Good.
I've read a lot about personal finance over the years, and so I listen to a lot of podcasts about that. So I tend to read books, listen to podcasts about that. But my wife and I love to watch various Netflix and Hulu and series, 1 hour series. We love watching those, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I was just listening to the New Heights, the Kelsey Show, on my walk over here, and
okay.
I like.
That's cool.
I really like. I find myself reading less now and more like listening to podcasts, but I don't know why that is, but
I think it. Did you grow up reading a lot, though?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I like voracious, but I've always tried to be somewhat of a good reader.
I was definitely voracious, right? And I think this advent of social and all that has messed with us on that ability to concentrate and read. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but I definitely feel that gap from when I pick up the book and start reading it, and it feels very different.
Yeah, it definitely does, because it's going to take you whatever, at least several hours, maybe 20 hours over the book. Whereas like you can just, it's so much easier to pick up your phone and look at something that's going to take you 2 minutes to scroll through. So yeah, it is a skill just to be able to sit down and read a book, and it's very important. It is. Yeah.
Well, I love Netflix too.
Yeah.
I hadn't looked at it in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and picked it back up last week, and I was like, oh, now I know. I'll be surprised if you're watching this one, but Gossip Girl is back.
Okay.
That one's back on there, so I was like, oh, I gotta watch that again. That's so fun. It's like goofy.
Yeah, no, I haven't, but
I wouldn't expect you to.
Maybe my wife has.
She might. But my one of the things I really like on the Smithsonian Channel is the Ariel America. Do you ever see that?
I don't think I have seen that.
Saturday mornings and stuff is when, and Sunday mornings, in the city, channel 189.
Okay.
But it's really cool because it's just some narrator, and they go around to different states or other parts of America. And this weekend they also had Ariel Italy. And I'll probably never make it to Italy, right? Personally. So I love seeing like this overview that they do. And it's just very visually appealing and soothing to have your coffee a little, and you can be looking at your iPad or other stuff and back and forth with it. And and you're getting information that's not people yelling at you and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds
I enjoy
really good.
it. I enjoy it. I would recommend that and so forth. Well, it's been fun chatting with you. I wanted to, as we start to wind down our time together, see if you did have a favorite quote or something that you do want to share.
My mom's high school motto was mens sana in corpore sana, which is a strong mind and a strong body. And I guess that's something that, I've always tried to, focus a lot on both like my sort of mind and my health, and so that's been a I think taking care of yourself, both mentally and physically, is very important, and so that quote kind of speaks to that.
That's nice. I like that, and it's the balance there, because one doesn't work well without the other.
Right, absolutely. And it gets back to kind of our walking thing, to get up, move around, and you'll feel a whole lot better.
Really do. I have found over the years, especially when I get where I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, which I'm not. It's just I'm dealing with some kind of issue, with work usually. Sometimes it's family or something. But getting out there and whatever exercise may be, or just walking, a nice day outside, it takes a few minutes, but then your head really does clear, and you start to, before you know it, you're starting to find solutions and things that you're just not going to find if you stay behind the desk or, other areas. So
that's very true.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else you would want to share?
No, I don't think so. I just, appreciate you having me on and doing this and everything the chamber does for the community.
Thank
and, hopefully people will check out what we're doing on the fredericksburgfreepress.com/bizbeat. And we'll try to keep people up to date on interesting things going on in the business community. So if you have a suggestion for a video or a podcast or an article, don't hesitate to reach out to me about that.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on this next phase of your journey, and on all the success so far with Fredericksburg Free Press, and getting the BizBeat series of items launched. That's awesome. Thanks for being here today, Bill, and thanks to our listeners for spending time with us today. Again, I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today is Bill Freehling. If you've not already liked and subscribed to the Chamber's Leader to Leader podcast, please go ahead and do so. Then you'll know when new episodes are available, and you'll help grow our audience that will know more about awesome leaders here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.